Hi, everybody. Hi, Lawrence. We're here for a hangout that we haven't done in a couple of weeks, and we're glad to be back on the air. Lawrence and I have decided to sort of switch up the format a little bit for this particular hangout. And we're going to go roll the tape back all the way to the beginning when we first became flat earthers, so that we can bring you forward from a vantage point of what we've been through for the last 2 years with regards to flat earth research. And the reason why we're doing that is because there are new people coming into flat earth all the time, and we've never done an introductory flat earth hangout or a video or discussion for brand new people to give them our perspective from 2 years of experience and a whole lot of research. And we're going to help provide links, not physical, to places for them to look to back up the information that we will provide. We're not going to spoon feed anyone. Most of the flat earth big channels do that. They tell you what flat earth is, what to think, what the map looks like, how the sun, moon, and stars work, pretty much everything. And they that's their choice. They can do that. Our choice has been, along the way of our experience, discovered that a whole lot of the information that we were reading and watching on YouTube was full of holes, and we considered it disinformation. There is a fine line between what is disinformation and what is misinformation. Misinformed is sort of more by accident. Disinformation is planned and scripted and could and should be considered propaganda. So most people don't even like the word propaganda. It immediately makes them think of Hitler and the rise of the Fourth Reich and so on, or Stalin or Mussolini. But propaganda is a simple by where you spoon feed information, some true, most false, that you use to indoctrinate someone's belief system and to create emotion and fear sometimes. But propaganda can also be handed to you like it's the truth, coming from an expert. Neil deGrasse Tyson comes to mind. He's considered an expert astrophysicist, yet all he talks most of the time is just utter bullshit. So, but he's still considered an expert. So I guess that would make him an expert bullshitter. So what we're going to attempt to do is, Lawrence and I have been doing this hangout series weekly, bi-weekly, taking a few breaks for about 1.5 years now. And so we're gonna start and describe where we got in, when we got in, and why we're still in, and why we've taken the path that we've taken. We are fairly well known as the debunkers of the AE map. We are not the only ones, but we pride ourselves in getting to the bottom of the truth. And so, welcome. Hi, Lawrence. Glad to see you again. It's been a few weeks.
We've had a good rest.
Good. Good.
Well, you might have. I haven't. This fella to contend with. I'm going to have to put him somewhere in a minute. I don't know where.
It's okay. It's all right.
Yeah. So the focus really now, obviously, is because they've had all these celebrity sports people coming out, which is going to sort of bring in a new raft of new flat earthers. And obviously, the problem, as we see, is when they come in, all the information they're going to get from most of the channels out there is going to be for a false model. So, you know, for example, this Flat Earth conference they've got coming up in November. There's a couple on there I've never heard before, but the rest of them, they all push the false model, knowing full well that it's full of holes. They've even actually got it as part of their "What's It All About" literature on their channel. So, you know, if anybody's new to Flat Earth as a result of that, then you need to know that the information they're putting out is false, and they know it's false, and they're deliberately doing it. Most of them are. Some are maybe just ignorant, but most of them, they are doing it deliberately. And this is a job for them. You know, whether they're paid or not, I don't know. But their job out there is, yeah, to push the Flat Earth, but a false version of it. And then, should it ever go the full hogging mainstream, it's going to be a big joke, and that'll be the end of it. So if Flat Earth did get out with the model they've got now, then you know, it would be a big joke.
Well, okay. Well, let's just start with that, and then roll the tape back. Okay. When we came in a couple of years ago, you farther back than I, but we immediately were shown this model of the circling sun and the moon, and what we call the pizza pan map, the AE model, and then the Gleason's map came out, and it stuck. I mean, it stuck tight. And the more people who were involved in the I'm going to mute you for a second, Lawrence. The more that people were involved in making videos, you know, they could make a whole video about the sunset, or about the perspective, or the flat horizon, no curvature. Somewhere along the way during the video or at the end of it, boom, there was the ominous Flat Earth map, as they called it, as if it had been officially designated, you know, with pomp and circumstance and fanfare. And once you know that that map and model is no longer iconic of the Flat Earth, then you see that and you just go, oh God, there it is again. And many people find that once they find out that that map and model are incorrect, they don't want to share any of those videos, even though there's good information in there. And that's kind of how controlled opposition works. And that is 90% truth, maybe even 90 plus, and 10% some little tricky non-truth, disinfo. And so as time's gone by, when Lawrence and I first started watching all these YouTube videos, Lawrence has watched, oh my God. I mean, you could at least say by now you've watched thousands of videos, right?
Yeah.
Because you work at home and you sit, you know, doing work at a table most of the time. And so you can let them play in the background and listen or watch or whatever. So you're probably one of the YouTube watchers of Flat Earth videos that I know of. And so you can agree that as you're watching these, you know, somewhere in there, the music comes on and the Flat Earth circle pops up, or at the end, you know, with the AE map on there. And that is a form of brainwashing, whether any one of these people is doing it or not. Collectively, it is brainwashing people into believing that that is iconic of Flat Earth. So start kind of at the beginning, real quick, Lawrence. You know, we don't have to take 2 years to talk about what happened in the last 2 years, but go back to the beginning, when it was, and how you started looking into flat Earth, and the difference between what you saw then and what you see now with regards to the information that's out there.
Yeah, well, when I first cottoned onto it, it was very low key. And in terms of YouTube, there was just a couple of guys putting out regular videos. One was called Jay Henning Kalogia, who funny enough stopped doing flat Earth videos altogether when it became popular. And Rory Cooper, who at the time I thought was really good, but subsequently, you know, he's favouring a false model for some reason. And then I was like a lone voice in the UK, and I spammed everybody on my Facebook page. And I thought I must do a talk on this, so I did a talk, 2014, at the same place I did the other talk, and it was video, but I was wandering around with a microphone, and it was too bitty for them to put it together. And then I had endless arguments with so-called non-flat earthers for 6 or 7 months or more. And then along came Mark Sargent, so I immediately got in contact with him, because at the time he was a breath of fresh air. I wasn't looking too closely at the detail of what he was putting out, but a lot of it matched with the stuff I'd already seen, so it was like reinforcing what you'd already learnt about flat Earth from the other crew. And then it was moving along okay, and it was getting very popular. And there were all these newbies coming into flat Earth that had never done a video before in their life and were not part of the so-called truth movement. They didn't do any other truth movies prior to this. A guy called Free Energy, or the woman, whoever it is, who hasn't done anything for a long time now, they came out and they brought out a YouTube called Flat Earth Lies. And if you haven't watched it, then that alone is enough to tell you that you've been sold a false model. And then from that, a few months later, I thought, who can I do a show with? Because most of them, you knew they were agents, so you were the only one who I thought was genuine. Although I did ask Tiger Dan to come on the show, and we did get the Morgile, who was, you know, a diehard Roadbottom fan with a circling sun still, and you know, Johnny sends them all to sleep on Globebusters, so you know they just prattle on and on and on about NASA, about, you know, how they steal your money and they tell you lies, and of course Jaron's going to tell all that again in November, because we haven't heard about NASA lying. You know, that's a new one on us. This is, you know, groundbreaking stuff. And of course, you weren't aware at the time that you'd also been sold that. And obviously you were skeptical at the start, but, you know, it doesn't take a great deal of reckoning to, if you look at it properly, to see that, you know, we've been shafted, and there's a whole raft of people who came into flat Earth with the sole purpose of sending us down the wrong path with a wrong model that would ultimately lead to the downfall if it ever became mainstream. Of course, we found all sorts of further flaws in the false model, which make it a complete joke, and down to the fact that they're even forging historic maps that never existed in the first place.
Right. Well, okay, so you were the one who first asked,
just a minute.
Okay, I'm gonna.
Come in.
You were the one who asked me some pertinent questions at the beginning. One of the things that I was, let me go back. I was one of what they call the first waivers. I'm not really sure who coined that phrase. I think it was Math Powerland, but those who came in at the end of 2014 and early 2015. And along with that big new group of people who were investigating and researching flat Earth, there were probably 4, 5, 6 main characters who were making YouTube videos who, mute you again, Laura, sorry, who were making YouTube videos and showing how the Earth worked as a flat Earth. And I didn't really need to know that, actually. I was completely confident, probably back when I was 5 years old, that I didn't believe in the globe. And so all my life, I just went along to get along, just like everybody else. But the minute I saw a barrage of information and what looked like a movement of people becoming flat earthers, I was all in immediately. Because I had already observed all of the reasons why the Earth is flat versus round, and just sort of had it subliminally in my mind. And so it started to culminate again. Well, when I watched things like Flat Earth Clues or Eric Dubé's, proofs, or the Flat Earth Conspiracy movie he made or documentary, along with, all the other top named Math Powerland, all the other top named flat earthers at the time, I did question all of it, because one person saying we live in a Truman Show enclosed dome world, and another one saying, no, we don't, we live on an infinite plane, and another one, and the Bible believers with the firmament, and then that means dome, and it went, all of it came together to become one divisive argument after another. So in that mix of time was when Lawrence and I got together and started to question the AE map, the Gleason map, Robotham, everything about him, and all of the philosophy of how the AE map model works. So shoot us because we're guilty of questioning what was generally being called the flat Earth map and the flat Earth model, because it didn't work according to observation. So we wanted to make this video for the purpose of hoping that there are a few people out there coming in new who might discover that for themselves, or hear that, there's an argument about the map, and there's an argument about the model, and there's these other people who are proposing, a diamond, and these other people are proposing a square, and this one works this way and this one works that way. The best that I could hope for at this point would be that we go back to focusing on the lie that we live on a globe, and that the Earth is flat, and that there is a conspiracy to cover it up. That is why this channel and the associated website and the associated Facebook page group are all called Flat Earth Conspiracy, because of the conspiracy covering up the flat Earth. Now, one of the first thing that comes to mind when people start researching this is, come on, who's covering it up? How are you saying all these people are in cahoots with one another, and that they're all, under the control of somebody telling them, whether you believe the Earth is a globe or not, you're gonna continue the story, because that's the way it is, and that's the way it's always been, and Big Bang and evolution and gravity and Earth. To say we're quite educated, we're quite clear on what we understand, at least so far, And if, for example, we could rid ourselves of this false model and have no model, okay, we can have all kinds of people putting in proposals for maps and models. We could have all kinds of people coming up with theories and hypotheses about how the world works. We can have those all the way from fourth dimension square to simulation theory realm to who knows. Everybody's entitled to go off in their own direction and come up with how they think the world works. But until we can get a majority of people to understand that this false map and model are actually holding us back, not moving us forward, then we could move forward. Because Lawrence and I said a year ago that when the mainstream decides to come out and blast the hell out of flat Earth, they'll be able to do it using that map and model. And it will be quite clear to everyone that it's a joke and that it's a hoax and that it was, you know, how can if these people are all so smart, how did they all believe in that? Who cares how they did? Who cares why they did? Whether it was brainwashing, watching a boatload of videos, one after another, seeing that map and that model repeated, or if they felt it in their heart, or, you know, for whatever reason, now is the time to, as a newcomer, okay, I know there's people who've been watching us for a long time who are watching now, but as a newcomer, I want you to keep your mind open that there is no official map and model of the Earth as a flat Earth. All of the information that we have has all been a collective implantation of observations, theories, experiments, tests that have been done by individual people all over the world. And flat Earth is everywhere. It is in every country. There is somebody everywhere who's a flat earther. And the predominant countries are the westernized countries, which are United States, Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand. Those are the top countries that flat earthers are coming in from and are most saturated in. And it's amazing to me that all these people kept coming in and adding in and adding in, and the false model didn't scare them away. So there's some reason why it didn't. It wasn't powerful enough to scare them away. You hear that, CIA, whoever you are, puppet masters who introduced that into the flat Earth? It didn't work. It didn't matter, okay? So if it didn't matter and people kept coming in, then we don't need it. It isn't important. It isn't mandatory. It has nothing to do with ice walls and snow globes and UN maps or any of that. It's the fact that the observations tell us that the Earth is flat. Okay, I've had my say, Lawrence. Now you can have yours.
Yeah, so the common theme.
You don't need to beat up on anybody, and you don't need to, get too personal about any of these people, because we've already done that. I
won't mention.
Okay.
Yeah. So if we turn the clock back 500 years or so, at the time that the globe was allegedly, brought into existence from nowhere, from whatever perception of the Earth was before, there would have been a reason for bringing the globe in. But the only one we can conclude is that there are ways out of this realm, and they wanted the people to think that they were in, there was no escape, and that had gone on really nicely for hundreds of years. People bought into it. It does seem totally ridiculous, but they made all the science fit and invented gravity and you know, and they could say, well, look, all the other planets around and the sun's around, there are balls in the sky. So
We
that
must
would,
be a ball too.
you know, it would be highly plausible that we could also be a ball, you know, floating around space. But obviously it started to get a bit thin, and they knew that this was coming, and you know, they couldn't keep faking the space program forever. You know, we had the
Well,
flight
500 years ago, when they came up with this, weren't even flying in planes yet. No one had been above, you know, the highest mountain and looked out, because there was no plane flight. Certainly, there was no space program. There were no rocket ships, and there were no hot air balloons. You know, were about as high as they could get. So that lie was pretty easy to work if no one can observe. But the problem is, people observed all the way through. There never has been a time when there weren't flat earthers, ever since the beginning. I mean, there's always been flat earthers, and they were flat earthers because why? Because they couldn't feel anything moving and spinning under their feet or in the air. They couldn't, you know, they didn't see any curvature. They didn't stand on the top of the mountain and see the ball Earth, and it would never have dawned on most people, based on their on the ground observations, that we lived on a spinning ball ever. I mean, until someone told you that, you would just like, what? And so so there's always been flat earthers, and there's always been observation of, you know, I was telling you a few weeks ago, I started going outside at night, looking at the stars moving across my house. Okay. I've already done 2 years of observing the sun's movement, and found that it moves in a straight line back and forth between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. And that makes the seasons, and that makes the climate, and blah, blah. Okay. And so I already did my time with staring at the moon. Why is the moon up in the day now? And why is there no moon this week? And why is the moon move slower than the sun? And all of the things that you know, you observe when you are really researching flat Earth. But then the star thing came up, and not too long ago, shout out to Paul Kofo. He, Kofo 72 is his channel. He did his own, he wasn't, you know, he wasn't an AE mapper, you know, or anything, but he decided that after all of the hullabaloo about there only being one single pole, the North Pole, in the center of the AE map, and everywhere out from that is south, which makes Antarctica an ice wall all the way around the perimeter of the pizza pie. He decided, because he lives in New Zealand, to start taking time-lapse photography and video of the star trails at the South Pole. Okay, we call it that because that's what we've called it all of our life. We don't know if it's a pole. Okay, and so bingo, the trails of the stars in time-lapse photography and video showed him from New Zealand looking south that bango, there's a circle there. The stars are making a circle, and they're circling around an unseen star called Sigma Octantis. And how can that possibly be on the AE map? There's no Southern Star Trail circles. They're all fake. Okay. And so when he started looking at the stars, and simultaneously I started reading the book called The Endurance, Shackleton's Incredible Voyage to Antarctica, the two things made me go out and start observing the stars for myself. So I decided, okay, bang, at this time of the year, Orion's belt is directly over my house, and it moves from the east to the west night after night in the exact same place. How do I know it's the exact same place? because I go out 3 times a night at the exact same time, and I put my foot on the 3rd brick from the post. Okay, meaning I'm standing in the same exact place, and depending on the drawing, just bottom left is exactly in line with my roof line of my gutter, moving because my house faces east and west. So it doesn't it goes the same speed every night. It doesn't move north or south of that line. It's exactly the same place, the exact same line, night after night after night. How in the world can that possibly happen if we're spinning through space, going 1,000 miles an hour around and 60-something thousand miles an hour through the universe, following the sun, blah, blah? How can that possibly happen? That same exact Orion's belt that managed to guide themselves in the sea thousands of years ago or whatever. Okay, how can that possibly be? So this is the kind of research that you have to do: observation, testable, repeatable observation. And that's how you become a flat earther, not watching a bunch of videos. That's how you become a bona fide flat earther, where you know it in your soul, you know it in your heart that the earth is a flat, motionless realm. Okay, that's Go Barnes. So so what did they do? What did they do? There's no exit according to the globe, right? So they created a globe because there's no way off unless you can go, flying off into space, which is one thing man's tried to do for ever since he could.
Yeah. And there would have probably been some committee around some medieval committee saying, well, we need to come up with a new version of reality to hide the exit. So what will we pick? And the globe is such an incredible thing to come up with, because if you imagine that you're having to tell people now, let's say everybody knew it was flat, and you were going to tell them it was a globe. How would you explain to the people down under that they are able to stand upright? Well, they'll say, well, we're upside down on here, but we're not upside down. And of course, they're tying gravity into not only pinning you down, but changing everybody's perception so everybody appears to be upright, even if they're not. Which is totally crazy. And of course, this seldom gets talked about in Flat Earth. And then you've got the whole curvature red herring when, just take a look at a globe, have a look at a globe and imagine that you're stood on it, and then look at the ground under your feet and the angle of the ground under your feet. You don't need any curvature tests to prove you're on a globe. It would be blatantly obvious to everybody, because there would be severe angles beneath your feet, unless you were right on the very top. And if you were at the South Pole, you would be upside down. You wouldn't, you couldn't live on the Earth. It'd be impossible. Once the gradient gets so much, you're going to be sliding off. Of course, that never gets talked about because that's supposed to be, a schoolboy version. But the globe is the globe, and if you're living on the surface of a globe, then you have to live with the elevations that go with it, and it's been completely ignored. And then they're going out looking for 8 inches in a mile. If you look at the Bedford Level experiment, where you've got a 6-mile stretch of water, and they're looking for 24 feet, whereas in reality, you'd be looking for 2/3 of a mile per mile. You'd be looking for 15-mile drop in elevation or something ridiculous like that, if we really lived on the globe. And you couldn't have canals because they would all drain out, all the water would come seeping out, because water finds its level, does it not? Crazy. And of course they say,
and that for the newcomers, Lawrence is talking about the difference between spherical curvature and spherical elevation. They are two different things. So you might want to look into that. We have some videos where we talk about that. But so here we are. It's 2017. It's a growing phenomenon of people who got a whiff from somebody that the earth is flat, or that they believe the earth is flat, and oh, that's crazy, that's stupid, you don't know what you're talking about, I didn't you go to school? And yet they forget, talking about going back to brainwashing and indoctrination. Every single one of us walked into the classroom at 5 years old, in kindergarten or first grade, 6 years old, and the first thing we saw in the classroom was this fabulous globe on the teacher's desk. And one of the early things that we start learning about almost immediately, when we start learning how to write and learning how to read, we're also learning about Mars and Venus and the order of the planets and how far they are from each other, and the sun and the 93 million miles away, and the size of the sun compared to the size of the earth, and the whole space thing. I mean, when I was in school, it was actually that age, it was actually a little before the space program. And so we didn't have that kind of indoctrination the way kids do today. It's not just planets and stars and suns and whatever. It is landings and Mars landings and space probes and all that stuff. So, I mean, they're really getting a dose of it. All right. So, Lawrence,
Yeah.
let me ask you something. And you're, as usual, making a lot of desk noise. But let me ask you something. When you first got involved in Flat Earth, was there necessarily a Flat Earth map or a Flat Earth model, or were they just talking about the observations and the proofs, like the curvature or the way the sun moves, or any of those things? Was that the focus, or was the focus, got to learn how this map and model works?
Well,
got to be able to describe it to the next person.
Well, the official Flat Earth Society, the one that's been going for a long time, they'd already adopted the HAE map, so that would be on their page. And of course, I adopted it. I even made a model of it myself to do a presentation. Made it out of plaster of Paris and got my other half to paint it all up with the continents and the sea and everything else, which I smashed on the show.
I remember when we smashed that. You smashed that on the show.
So yeah, there wasn't a great deal. I mean, the new information coming in at that time was from Rory Cooper and J. Henning Calogia and stuff like that. So, and a lot of their stuff did seem to make sense at the time. And then
it makes sense. It's just, it makes perfect sense, but the globe does too, you see. That's the tricky part. You can convince someone that something makes sense if you give them all the right data and withhold the wrong data. For example, if you say in the north, it looks like the sun's going around in a circle, okay? And that must mean that the north is the center of the Earth map, and the sun's going around in a circle over the north. Well, hello, nobody told you about it. Does the same thing in Antarctica. It goes around in a circle, doesn't it, Lawrence? Okay.
Exactly.
But that doesn't work on the AE map. Neither do Southern Star Trail circles, and neither does the climate work on the AE map, and none of the southern tips of all the continents and the orientation that they are on the AE map work with plane flights, distances, real data that you can't fake. You know, I said earlier, we're going to give you some links. Well, if you've never yet visited, and I don't care how long you've been a flat earther, if you've never yet visited timeanddate.com and worked with that for a little while, or SunCalc, or any of the other internationally accepted data platforms on the internet, then how in the world do you think that they could fake all of that information or make lies, when there are people all over the earth who can test it and verify it? If they say the sun comes up at 6 a.m., you go out at 6 a.m. and it doesn't come up, then they lied or they gave you misinformation, correct? So when we say we check data, we triangulate 2, 3, 4 different things, because one of the worst things we would like to do is be wrong. We don't want to be wrong. And we don't want to pass on wrong information. Yes, we have gone off in our own realm and come up with mock-up Earth philosophy that others don't agree with, and that's fine. We don't really care, even though no one's ever come forward to debunk what we've put out there, because we had gotten to the point where we had debunked the model. Our natural curiosity led us to want to figure out, well, how does it work? I mean, that would be natural, wouldn't it? And when we put the observations together, there were many things that said, well, if it's not that, it's not that, and it's not that, it might be this. We didn't say it must be that. We said it might be this. And so we kind of went off on our own thing, and, hey, sue us. We're, nobody said a law that flat earthers can not come up with their own hypothesis of how everything works. So back to being new. If you're watching this and you are just investigating, if you're investigating from a standpoint of, I don't believe this and I'm going to debunk it if it kills me, and you've watched all the debunking videos that are out there by, people like Vsauce or whoever, who has more views than anybody anywhere, like 100 million views, debunking flat Earth, which should say a lot to you, that people aren't watching that for entertainment. They're watching it because they truly have cognitive dissonance, and they want not to believe the Earth is flat and that they've been lied to. That's why they're watching it. They're watching it for justification to keep calling people like us idiots and morons and conspiracy theorists. And so when you go looking for information, if you want to debunk the flat Earth, you'll find all the information you need to debunk it, because you're being led into believing that. The only way to truly debunk the flat Earth is to go outside, observe, watch, measure, test, repeat until you prove to yourself, we must be spinning and this must be a globe. And I think I felt myself move there for a second. And even though that little bumblebee was able to just hover around gently and, no problem. And that hot air balloon is able to hover right up there without being blown away by the atmosphere on a still day. If you still want to believe it's a globe, you're going to, because you're conditioned to from your whole lifetime of indoctrination. But if you want to see what the rest of us see, you'll see it. You won't. It's not hidden. It's right there.
Yeah. So I mean, if you're new to flat Earth and you the chances are that you'll be watching YouTubes from the those with large audiences, because that's invariably where most people go for to find things out, and they're all promoting this false model. Well, let's just pick a few holes in it so that you know that it's impossible. So the circular maps are too big. So the surface area of the globe we're not on a globe, but the surface area is going to be accurate. Otherwise, people, you know, will be pointing out that things just simply didn't work. You know, because people have to get from A to B. So the AE map or the Gleason map, the surface area is 2.5 times that of the globe. So that alone makes it impossible. And then you've got the star trails going in opposite directions in the different poles. Obviously, they say there's only one pole, so they won't have it that there is a southern pole star. All the distances, obviously, because the map is 2.5 times the surface area, the distances are going to be way out in the southern hemisphere and more accurate in the north, but they're just completely out, which you'll get people saying that the southern flights, that they have these secret planes that can go supersonic, or they're picking up these wind trails where they can pick up, you know, a tailwind of 500 miles an hour to make them supersonic, but they don't say, you know, the winds won't be going in both directions. How do they get back? And it's totally ridiculous, and they're still sticking to these ridiculous arguments. And then if you look at the symmetry of night and day, the north is an exact mirror of the southern hemisphere or hemiplane in their respective seasons, so they get the same length of day, the same length of night. That is impossible on a circular map. It simply doesn't work. And you could not have 24 hours of daylight in at the South Pole if it was on the edge of a circle. So they try and argue that you know, the 24 hours of daylight is a hoax, despite it being, well, you know, you can actually see it for yourself. Just Google Casey Station Antarctica webcam, and you can, you know, in their summer, you can see the daylight for 24 hours for several weeks, and the webcam takes a photograph every 5 minutes and then strings them all together, so you can see the shadows across the car park and of the people and of the buildings. You will actually see the shadows if you just keep stopping it a few frames at a time. You'll see shadows in every direction. So the sun or something casting a light in the sky is casting a direction in every which way. So there is 24 hours of daylight and there is sunlight for 24 hours. We can't see the sun going all the way around because the camera is in a fixed position. And then you look at the another huge hole in their argument, and they just ignore this one. We had the expeditions in the early 1900s. Robert Scott and Amundsen both set out within a few weeks of each other to the South Pole. They set off on some ice shelf at their base camps. They weren't too far away from each other, but if they had to embark on a journey around the ice wall, they would have both have had to walk 30,000 plus miles there and back. And considering it was only 10 or 11 weeks for them to actually get there, that is a physical impossibility for them to have done it. Of course, they won't address that because you know, it doesn't fit their model. And then Laurie and myself actually investigated the Gleason map, which came to light shortly after Flat Earth exploded. And you can watch the back episode of that. We proved conclusively that that map is actually a forgery because the company attributed to printing it and making it, which was the Buffalo Litho Company, and it's written on the bottom of the map. Well, fun enough, that was the only map they ever made, apart from Street Map, which we investigated, which was of the street map of Buffalo, and we proved that they'd actually photoshopped the map to make it look like they had the copyright, when in fact it was the biggest, I think it was the Rand Corporation, the biggest news corporation in the United States, or the biggest map makers in the United States for street maps. They actually had the copyright on it. So they were just putting that map up there to make it look like they made other maps. And the only book they ever published was the book that went along with the map. And all the copies of the book that have been available for sale are all in absolute brand spanking new mint condition. and nobody had heard about this book until a couple of years ago. If you do any searches on it, the only things about it are, you know, the new things for Flat Earth, and they've actually obviously got a team of people out there trying to cover their trails and alter the digital records of things. So we had the, if you look on the Gleason map, you've got modern college on the top, when it was in fact there's only a modern college, and they actually altered the front of the book to try and make it look that there was a modern college, when once you've gone past the first page of the book, inside everything says Morden, which was a care home for merchants who'd fallen on hard times. So, you know, there are so many holes in the model that you are being sold if you're new to this. Watch through some of our back episodes, and you'll find that that it's impossible. We've got quite a regular audience, or we did have, who listen to us on the podcast, so they're pretty much up to speed with you know, the fakery that's going on, and is still being actively promoted by all the channels that make regular appearances. Some of them don't talk about it at all. Their shows are just chat, but they do, you know, the fact that they don't expose this obvious deception, and they have these people on their channels, they're going along to get along, and we don't do that here. You know, we just want to give you the unvarnished truth, and then you can run with it and make your own mind up.
You're starting to buffer, and maybe you want to drop out and come back in. Yeah. John just joined us. John Walicki. John, are you there?
I am. How are you? No.
Most excellent. We don't have any camera for you, but that's okay.
I'm here.
You don't have it. Okay. If you've been listening at all before you jumped in, John, just how we became flat earthers, and this podcast is designed for new people coming in, to sort of make them beware that there's been a false map and a false model in flat Earth, and don't walk away from flat Earth when you happen upon that, if it sort of wards you off, because it doesn't work, and it sort of should make you think we're all a little crazy if we believe in that, and thankfully we don't all believe in that. And so Lawrence and I have been just kind of walking back over the proofs that we have. We're not talking about our proposed map or model so much, at all. What we are talking about is, you know, to the newcomers, the kinds of research and the things that they should look for themselves. What do you have to add about that?
Yeah. Well, I know you were talking about, you know, beware the false models, or the false model. There's one. Yeah, you know, for people coming into it, I guess, you know, it's intriguing. It's fascinating. It was intriguing. It's what brought me to it. You know, the fact that, wow, everything's wrong. It's flat. Cool. And that was just, you know, then it was just exploring more and more. There's so much out there right now for anyone coming into flat Earth. I don't know. What do you do? Where do you start? The big names, they're dinosaurs at this point, in my opinion. They're just repeating the same old stuff, or they're figuring out new ways to do the same old research. And so I have no heroes in the flat Earth community outside of Flat Earth Conspiracy.
Well, I never thought of myself as, or Lawrence, I'm sure, as being a hero, but thank you for that.
The only reason it dialogue.
Would be, well, and that's the only reason it would be. You know, we don't sugarcoat anything. We're not here to make flat Earth friends and have, you know, a flat Earth party or whatever. We're here to find the truth, and we're here to wake other people up, including those who already are in flat Earth, and those who might just have heard about it this last week because some basketball star or football player or whoever came out and talked about it and said that, yeah, it might be flat. And that should be a wake-up call to anyone who hears someone like that, although I've read plenty of comments under articles that have been written about him, them, they, saying, you know, how in the 21st century can there still be flat earthers? Or didn't he go to Duke? That kind of thing. And so, you know, it has nothing to do about education. That's why you're a Glober, was your education. So, you know, John, to, you know, what were the first things that you did as a new flat earther? And you've been in a couple years too, right? Weren't you a first waiver?
Yeah, I'd probably consider myself a second waiver. Really, like, you know, specifically flat Earth. Probably. I'd like to been in the first wave, but I'd say like a few years back. I think what drove me to explore more is that I was taking a lot of interest in the atmosphere. And the fact that, you know, it's got layers, sorry, sphere, excuse me, the atmospheric above.
Right.
It's a series of layers, you know, however you want to look at it, whether it's an onion or it's a table, it's a series of layers, and they get thinner and thinner, and then we get near perfect vacuum of space. I think they're even saying now, NASA is even admitting that space isn't even a complete vacuum. So aside from all the other stuff they're saying. And by the way, hats off to Bill Maher for mentioning that basketball player on his show last night and getting steamed up about it. I'm sure it got a lot of people intrigued. So thanks, Bill. You done a great job.
Keep talking about how crazy we are and talking about flat Earth, you guys on the news, on the fake news, whatever.
Yeah. Well, you know, and getting back to this atmospheric thing is my thought was back a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago, maybe. I'd have to check my videos. I was considering that, you know, the atmospheric
I know. I mean, we have to the whole new language, right? Okay, go ahead.
My God,
we all know what you mean by atmosphere.
It's like talking about Caitlyn Jenner. Sorry, her,
him, it, her, it.
So yeah, the lensing effect. You know.
The layers.
Well, you know, I was considering the fact that the sun is a certain size in our, you know, perspective in the sky. But my thought was that after you raise yourself out of the clouds and everything and above into, you know, where space begins, that I was theorizing that, like, well, the sun is probably actually a lot bigger and probably a lot closer because, you know, we're seeing it through, you know, like the inside of a crystal water ball. I'm not 100% on that still, but the thing that keeps me going is the fact that I'm still not necessarily satisfied with any video. Even the latest selfie from the astronaut doing a walk outside of the station. I don't know. I mean, he didn't really show much anyway. So,
well,
I don't know.
You know, I just watched a really interesting movie series, which I had never seen. Believe it or not, the Twilight vampire series, right? So Jimmy and I decided to rent them on Amazon and watch them for pure entertainment purposes. And the CGI in that was pretty darn good. I mean, including the green screens, the werewolves, tearing people's heads off. It was pretty bizarre, but the CGI was, I mean, if you didn't know about CGI, you were just like, you know, just dropped in from someplace under a rock and watched that, you wouldn't really be able to tell it from real. And so I'm pretty underwhelmed with anything they show us from outer space and the space station and spacewalks and any of it. I mean, it could be anything. the technology's so good. So Lawrence, John, are you caught up? You have more to add?
No, I'm here. Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
I'm trying to get the camera going. I'm trying to get my
Okay.
face on.
Okay.
No,
So you're not just the Illuminati eyeball.
hang on one second. We'll see. Let's see what I can do.
Okay, so Lawrence, and let me ask you something real quick. The fact that there is this model and map that are now known and called by so many YouTube channel aficionados the flat Earth map. That's just, they call it that now, and most people know what you're talking about when you say the flat Earth map, as if it was voted on and elected as the representational map of the flat Earth. And so, what do you think would happen if suddenly there was an agreement between all flat Earth video makers, bloggers, writers, all of them, not to include any representation of what the flat Earth is? Do you think that that would advance flat Earth faster or slow it down?
It would advance it, but
okay, hold on. You don't have much, Lawrence, I can't hear you. You need to get a little more volume. Uh-oh, did he freeze? I think you're frozen. Drop out and come back in, Lawrence. We can't hear you. I'm sorry. Okay, John, can you answer that question?
Sorry, could you repeat the question, please?
It's not a game show.
Okay.
Okay, so here's the question. If suddenly everyone agreed in the flat Earth, video makers, bloggers, writers, so on, that they would not include any AE map or any representational map for flat Earth, since we haven't voted on it and there are a growing number of people who are opposed to it, especially calling it the flat Earth map, the AE. Do you think that if it were suddenly missing and everyone agreed to drop it out of their videos, that it would progress the flat Earth movement faster or slow it down?
I think it would progress that segment of the flat Earth community. Our segment's doing just fine. There's creativity. If you don't show anybody anything, they'll try and come up with something. And if you show them something, they're gonna try and work off of it, probably all different ways. So I don't know, 6 of one, half a dozen of another. It's a tough call. I don't think it would have any negative effect.
Don't you think most people that are flat earthers are basically pretty imaginative, or they wouldn't have questioned the globe to begin with?
I don't necessarily see those two things as
okay. Maybe it's just me. Okay. Okay, Lawrence, can we hear you now? Can you answer the question? We cannot hear you. Your audio is either turned down on your laptop or something got unplugged. I don't know what happened.
Can you turn on the captioning, Lawrence?
Turn on the captioning. God, why didn't I think of that like a year ago?
Come on, Google, let's go.
Try to caption Lawrence. No, we're not. We can't hear you, Lawrence. I'm so sorry. Maybe jump out and come back in, but maybe I have no idea. I have no idea. Lawrence has more tech difficulties than any one human I've ever seen who regularly does Hangouts. Okay, well, my opinion is on that question is that I think most people have a decent imagination. Okay, there's Lawrence. Yeah, with the feedback.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now you're too loud.
All right, I'll turn it down a bit then. Or I'll talk softly. Softly will get more views.
Okay.
What's that stuff? ADSL?
the reason why you need to put your earbuds in, it's feeding back, Lawrence.
Is that better?
Boy.
Am I still here?
Yeah.
Am I still?
Now you're better.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. So if there was a universal agreement among flat earthers not to promote any model, saying we just don't know, then yeah, the flat earth would advance. People can still obviously start looking to what the model is, but there would be an agreement that no model would be presented to mainstream as the flat earth model. We would just point out the absurdity of actually living on a globe, but that's not going to happen because all those people that have come into flat earth are not real flat earthers. They're all actors, they're all following a script which is to promote flat earth or send flat earth to sleep but promote a model which is horribly wrong, which can never go anywhere. But yeah, I mean, some of
hence the reason that Mark Sargent, from the day he walked in the door, repeated tens of thousands of times by now, we live in a Truman Show dome covered something, whatever that is. I've forgotten what he used to always say now because he kind of doesn't say it as much anymore, but it's on every video. It's everywhere. Truman Show dome, something, enclosed world, blah, blah. And, you say it enough times, there is a following of people who think we live in the Truman Show. And then, there's others who, like Rob Skiba, I'm not calling out anybody's name as far as detrimental. We've already done that, and I'm over that because it hadn't done any good. But Italy uses the word snow globe in his videos and his presentations. Yahweh's terrarium is another term. And, he's entitled to that. But as to what we let, when you hear it, you will completely kick out flat Earth from your research interests and move on. So terms, pictures, representations, repeated explanations for how things work have all slowed the process of flat Earth, because most people who got in, when they first got in, they heard it and they went researching it, and they didn't buy into a globe or a model. They bought into the concept that we're not spinning, we're not moving, we're not blah, 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 all the knots. We're not doing any of these things, right? Okay, John.
Yes.
I have another question for you.
Okay, because I was going to add something to that, but shoot, yeah.
Oh, please do before we can move on.
Well, no, on the aspect of creativity, I'm a huge punk rock fan, and being it was last year, I think, or this year or next or whatever, it's the 40th anniversary of the Sex Pistols, punk rock, and
get out of here, 40
yeah,
years.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've been watching interviews with Jordan at the World's End, and it's fascinating to hear these people speak about it, like later on in life. But and Malcolm's gone, and Sid's gone, and John's doing his thing. But it's and Steve Jones, and
Sorry, I wasn't a big Sex Pistols fan, so I don't really know any of those people, but it's okay.
I got to see him at the reunion tour in Milwaukee, and that was all I got to see. I missed it. I was late, but as a skateboarder, it was great music.
Right.
But all that creativity that came out of that movement in such a quick amount of time, kind of like the Flat Earth movement. It just all of a sudden, in 2 years, and now it's going to be 3 years, and it's just boom. And there's not money in it. And, just like with, punk rock, there's no money in it. They're just playing for playing. But it spawned a whole lot of things. It spawned, the 80s and new wave and everything, and the corporatization of music. really. And like I mentioned about Bill Maher, you see this happening, and it's getting more airplay. It's it's getting it's ridiculed. It starts out with ridicule,
Sure.
and but I see after this next year, it might not be up to the people, the fair people of YouTube. It might be up to the corporate directors that start running the show. Start trying to redirect everything the way they want it to go with money and everything, and we could see a complete reversal without even any control over it anymore.
Oh, sure.
Not like
I
we
mean,
had any to begin with.
I'm
Yeah.
well on record already, at least in the Facebook group. We haven't talked about it because the Flat Earth Conference 2017 or whatever it is that they're going to be doing in North Carolina in November. There's a little plug for you. And so we haven't done a hangout since they announced it, the beginning of this month, I guess. And all of the lineup of people, the speakers, are pretty much, flat Earth buddies, and pretty much all have the same philosophy about what the flat Earth means and how they describe it and so on. And, there's no alternative speakers or anything at this thing. And of course, Lawrence and I brought that up, not that we wanted to be invited because I'm not going anyway, but the idea of charging $100 and something for a ticket to a Flat Earth conference. And the rooms are, if you want to stay over, the rooms are $149. And I believe the VIP tickets were something like $249, which gave you the opportunity. I think they were only going to sell 25 of them or something. And it was going to give you the opportunity to be, backstage and palsy with the organizers and speakers. And so apparently those are they say they're sold out. Now, I don't know, maybe they pulled them because they decided they didn't actually want to do that. Who knows? And it doesn't matter. But people already are talking about, what are they doing? Why are they charging so much money to come to a conference? And of course, the answer is probably going to be, well, it's very limited how many people we can have at this venue. Or, okay, then why are you having it at that venue? Maybe you should have had it in the middle of Central Park, if you expected millions of flat earthers to come, and because there are millions. And so then I see where, today Lawrence posted in the Facebook group, Math Powerland came out with his new power line of clothing for flat earthers. I guess it's something like send in your clothes or your jeans or whatever and let Math Powerland paint them for a small fee on eBay. And suddenly the commercialization of flat Earth kicks in right about the time that some big name celebrity star people, there hasn't really been anybody big since B.O.B. and Tila Tequila. So now we've
he was on
invaded the sports
MTV.
word.
Well, he was on MTV though, so
Okay, all right.
He's got an IMDb page, I'm sure.
Well, there you go. And so, that to me, as a conspiracy theorist follower for quite a few years, tells me that somebody expects it to go mainstream anytime soon, and they're going to capitalize on flat Earth. And why else would you try to have a conference and charge a lot of money? Why else would you introduce by the way, Matt Powerland said he got married. His new wife was in the video. Cute thing. And so, I'm thinking that 2017 is probably going to be the year where flat Earth mainstreams more. And people are going to be real excited about that, people that are flat earthers. And it's going to build up to more of a he said, she said division type thing, right? But Lawrence and I's biggest fear all the way through from the time that we discovered that this AE map was really a hoax and a joke and was probably implanted into the flat earth community from the get-go, that they will simply come out and debunk it once and for all. I mean, officially, which we've already done, but nobody likes that. But when they do it, it's going to, it's going to be a guillotine. Because if we haven't thrown out the AE map and model before then and said, no, debunk it all you want. That's not our map. That's not our model. That's not what we believe in. We just believe these things. And until we learn more and uncover more lies, this is all we know. But this we know. That we don't know. And that, we all admit that was implanted, and who did that, and why. There you go, because it's so easy to debunk. And if everybody believes that, then you all are morons. That's what they're going to say. Lawrence, you're muted, nice and quiet. You want to add something?
Yeah, that is the big fear. So the fact that the mainstream, because these basketball players, baseball players, wrestlers, whatever, who've, their voice has been allowed to reach millions of people. The mainstream media could have suppressed it, but they didn't. So there's obviously a plan out there to let flat Earth become more widespread. And it's a question of what their plan is beyond that. Is it to bring it out to smash it to bits, or is it to bring it out to allow it to stay out but under the false model? Are they going to say ultimately, yeah, we've kept this secret?
Well, because the false model is another no escape plan, right?
That's what they want.
Nobody can get beyond 300 million miles of ice all the way around the perimeter.
Yeah,
I mean, you'll freeze to death, right? You're not going out that way, and you can't go up because there's a dome over the top of you. See, they got the whole thing covered.
Yeah, so they could probably just CGI the whole thing.
Out. You live in a snow globe terrarium, Truman Show and Closed World. That's what you live in. That's what you've been indoctrinated to believe, and then everybody that you read in the comments on videos from NASA or mainstream news about, discovering more channels and planets and so on. If you don't bother reading the article, just read the comments. The comments tell it all. And when the comments say we're surrounded by an ice wall, we're there's a dome above us, and that all of that same urban legend, mythological flat earth dogma keeps being repeated. That tells me that that's what they're using to sell flat earth to people. Okay. They're not just talking to each other. I mean, flat earthers, they talk to each other in groups, but I mean, out on a NASA thread, they're talking to mainstream people and space believers and ISS believers and globers. That's who they're talking to, and that's what they're using to debunk the globe with. And I'm like, holy crap, this is embarrassing.
I think they're trying to make this flat earth conference really big, and obviously the people who listen to flat earth shows, while the conference is on, there won't be any of the regular shows because they'll be over in Carolina, wherever it is.
No, and they are going to, according to the website, they are going to live stream it for a fee.
They're going to charge $17 to watch it.
$17 to watch it.
If you look at the combined audiences of the people on there, if they're not broadcasting that week, they may well get 30,000 views at $17 a head. That's over $500,000. And if Flat Earth really takes off, then they could be on to quite a money spin to make some serious money out of Flat Earth, because they're in there first with this international conference,
right,
which will be more of the same. There'll be nothing new, and the same that they're bringing out is the same old lies.
Well,
but
I'm
they're
going
there
to
first.
make a prediction that by the time they have this conference, most people will have decided that are already flat earthers to wait. It's just like when a new big blockbuster video is released, movie is released after a few months or something. You know, you can get it, you can watch it free somewhere. And I would say within no time at all, there will be uploads. Maybe somebody will pay and then they'll upload it to their channel and put it under Creative Commons and let it roll. And people will download it and they'll watch it themselves. And so I doubt very seriously that many people will watch it live. But I could be wrong. I mean, that's just my prediction. But the idea of having a conference is good, but I've seen in Facebook groups people talking about, you know, who they think they are charging that kind of money and having it in some fancy venue and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, a real true gritty flat earth conference or get together would be held in a park somewhere with people bringing potluck food and tents and hanging out and telling flat earth stories. And I agree with that. It would be more of a festival than a conference. It would be more likely it's highly attended if it were like going to see the Grateful Dead.
Yeah,
You know, this comedian Tosh said something. You know, I don't know if you know Tosh, Lawrence, but he's big here. I'm not into him, but he said something interesting. He's like, he only does like you know, concerts like where people like pay to get in. He says like, he's like, you know why my tickets are expensive? Because he's like, oh, because you could just find $10 anywhere and just, hey, $10, I'm gonna go in and murder somebody. He's like, that's why I make my gigs really expensive. So,
go in
I
and
don't
murder
know.
somebody.
That's what he's out there. He's
pretty
like,
out
yeah,
there.
anyone can just pick up $10 and walk into a show. He's like, that's why I make mine expensive.
Right. Oh,
So,
I see. Okay.
yeah.
I got you. Okay. We don't want anybody in the cheap seats. We only want people who can afford to pay. Right. Well,
Yeah,
you know,
it's ridiculous.
Here's the thing though, about who came in as the speakers of and organizers of this thing. There's a few of them. Like I think I've officially met one of them, Brian Mullen. I met him, but none of the rest have I met in person. And I only spoke to Brian briefly. The first time we met, it's been probably a year and a half ago, and seemed like a great fellow. And most of the people that are involved in the conference seem like great people. But what I can't understand is why, when we called out the problems with this false flag model, we were chastised. You know, we were called the troublemakers. We were the buttheads. And so then we got a little more forceful and we started calling them out by name. There was a couple of episodes where, I mean, we just really went after it and just said, so-and-so's saying this and so-and-so's doing that, and it's patently wrong. And then instead of anybody taking a look and saying, you know, they might be right or whatever, they took it personally. There's nothing personal about the truth, okay? The truth is the truth. It's not either good for you or bad for you. It doesn't make you a hero or a villain. It is just a fact. And excuse me. So instead of people coming forward and saying, you know, you're right, I'm going to take a look at this and I'm going to agree with you on these points, even a couple of them would have been okay. Finally, after about a year and a half, now suddenly there's more and more people waking up to, yes, this is a problem. This is a false model and this doesn't work. And neither Lawrence or I give a crap about getting credit for that, because we're not the only ones that brought it up, but we are the most vocal. We did get our heads chewed off quite a few times by other people making videos for calling out this false flag model. So let's both of you, let's all three of us say quickly, and then I'm going to cut this short, because we've addressed for beginners and for other people who are not beginners to just sort of maybe take a second look at what we've been talking about for a year and a half. I forgot how I was going to word the question. If we had never said anything, okay, if we had just gone along to get along, flat earth friends, I'm sure you remember that time well, Lawrence, let's all just be flat earth friends. If we had not said anything and had not made a bugaboo about it and just let it go because, you know, it really isn't that important and it doesn't matter that much, what would it have changed had we just kept our mouths shut? Now, I want you to answer that first, John. And you're muted.
If we had kept our mouths shut, I think it would just have gone like, oh, wow, that's a difficult question to answer, to be put on the spot.
Yeah. Why is it difficult to even answer?
Well, gee, because I don't think there are any other versions or alternatives out there. That's the crazy thing. It's either like, well, it's either a square, a diamond, or they got that round thing going on. And I don't know.
The toroidal thing.
Well, yeah. There's that too. I mean, but some might consider that like, you know.
Well, the toroidal thing has, is a donut with the center in the center. Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of interested that people are like maybe like thinking more dimensionally. I don't know. Nowadays I am. Maybe I'm just projecting, but I don't know. People love to carry around their symbol, even though, you know, they don't even think about it. So,
well, think about how many flat earth keychains and flat earth clock faces and flat earth, all kinds of whatchahoosies have been created, made, sold over the last couple of years since this whole thing started. I mean, I don't know that anybody's making any serious money off of selling flat earth trinkets, but every flat earth trinket that I've ever seen has that map on it. Right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's the only one I see.
Somebody made a clock, and the, you know, hour hand is the sun, and the minute hand is the moon. Go around.
And that's false anyway, because it would have to be a 24-hour clock anyway, because it would have to go a complete circle in 24 hours, not 12. Otherwise, it's false. So I would ask for my money back if I bought one.
Okay, so you don't think that? I mean, obviously, you know, you like us, and you agree with most of the same things we agree with as far as the map and the model and so on, and not because we convinced you, but because you convinced yourself. Do you think we harmed?
Yeah, the truth is convincing.
Do you think we harmed?
No.
I mean,
not
a false map and model.
No, definitely. I'm just wondering how big of a dent we made. I don't know what it's surprising how not many people really, I don't know, care. They're sort of like turned off by critical things. And it's amazing how many people are swayed by, you know, the comic routines of some people, you know, that has nothing to do with talking about details or reality or anything.
Well, for two people who are called agents and trolls and shilly and shill pants and all kinds of names, me and Lawrence, I would have to say we made some kind of an impact, because we're probably two of the most talked about despised people who, from those who believe in that map and model or choose to believe, because I deal with it every day online, being every time I make a comment on some thread in a group or on YouTube or anywhere. I mean, oh, Lori Frary's here, shill pants, you know, or take your diamond map and, you know, 4D model, blah, blah, and go away. We don't want you here, or whatever. I'm like, well, you know, I mean, I didn't get in this to become Miss Popularity, but so I did a really good thing by not becoming that. But so Lawrence, why don't you answer the question? Do you think we've done harm or done good to Flat Earth for our efforts to show people that the map and the model, AE map and model, is erroneous and wrong and shouldn't be followed? Uh-oh. Lawrence, you froze again. Your icon's not moving. So I hope you heard the question. Drop out, come back.
Send us your answers. We'll read them on the next session.
Yeah, and the next. Okay, so the if we hadn't done that, you know, I know quite a few people who now are coming forward, who are flat earthers, who are coming forward in their own versions and videos, debunking the AE map and model, and I'm very glad to see it. And they get it. I don't know if it was the same reason for all of them that they see that. And I'm just glad. I'm not proud. I'm not, you know, gloating. I'm not any of those things, because we could have been wrong, but we're not. And, you know, but some people say, oh, it's the star trails. The star trails screwed up the whole thing. You can't have a focused star trail in the southern hemi with the AE Antarctica all the way around the whole freaking thing. I mean, it just doesn't work.
Am I back?
Yes, you're back, but I can't hear you now. So whatever happened the last time happened this time too, as far as sound. No. I can't even see it moving. Okay. Sorry, folks listening. This happens. Lawrence is in the UK and he doesn't have the best internet streaming, but we get through it the best we can, because, you know, it's Lawrence, and what would this show be without Lawrence? Okay, there he is.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you fine and dandy.
All right. Well, I'm going to do a little screen share here in answer to your question.
Oh, we've gotten all the way through without a screen share. Hide your
Okay.
icon.
So, all right. So you're saying, have we made an impact? Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I did this video in 2005, and it had got about 130,000 views. And at that time, I decided to pull it because part of it was about chemtrails, part about flat Earth. But I removed it because obviously I was putting out the same bullshit because I'd bought into it. But if you look at this comment here by somebody, just bear with me a second. There we go. So this is from somebody at Globebusters, and I'll read it. It says, "It is ironic that Lawrence Wright has turned completely against what he said about the very flat Earth maps he showed in this presentation." That's why I withdrew it. "Furthermore, he has alienated the Flat Earth Awakening by promoting the so-called Pac-Man map and saying things like it is either Pac-Man or a ball. People accuse Mark Sargent of being a shill, but what Lawrence is doing now proves beyond any doubt whatsoever who is shilling against the Flat Earth. He has come out against the majority of the community, including Globebusters, including anyone who has ever made the slightest reference to the Gleason map as being controlled opposition and attempting to destroy the community. He calls us all stupid while he promotes the ridiculous Diamond Pac-Man map he concocted which has zero basis in reality. He also states that the sun does not orbit around the Earth, but rather it and every other entity on Earth goes through a portal and then magically appears on the other side of the map Earth, be it diamond or square or whatever. Lawrence Wright is a fool and a traitor to the flat Earth community. He is doing his very best to destroy everything flat Earthers have worked for. So I guess we've rattled the cage of globe busters, if nobody else. I mean, that video, that video was not in the current crop. It had been done over a year ago. So Bob from Globebusters had actually gone out and looked into back histories of anything that had got my name on it to find some negative comments. So, we even got the people to change the cover of a book, Laurie. That was the impact we have. There are people in Flat Earth working behind the scenes, covering and amending the digital records of stuff that they have to support their false claims. And it even goes as far as, altering the cover of a book and sticking it on Amazon, which you then bought and proved that they'd actually faked the book. And that came out shortly after the show that we did. So yeah, we've had a huge impact, and people think that we were a small channel when we, you were saying many months ago that we'd had 500,000 downloads on the podcast. That would put us right at the top of viewers if you added that to our YouTubes, which are not that many, a few thousand. But the other channels like to make out that they're the top channel. We're not in it for the numbers. But we know that these people are buying views and so on. We've proved that is possible to do. We don't do it because we're not interested in buying. We just want to capture the attention of those who will, so they can understand that they've been sold a false model, which is going to put them down the wrong track.
Up until now, most of our efforts were. I need to mute you because it's feeding back. Most of our efforts were to try to get the attention of the big channels, to try to get them to look at the information and hopefully see that the model that they were pushing was erroneous. When we discovered that they did in fact know what we were calling them out about, and they still didn't change, that told us, well, why would they not even, acknowledge that the information that we're trying to, show them and get them to stop passing disinfo? Why are they mad? And then we realized, well, they're mad because they don't want anybody calling them out about disinfo. And it never really dawned on us to try to be the generic flat earth channel where people could learn basic, flat earth information, because we have plenty of it. I mean, I had an argument today, well, not an argument, but a discussion with somebody about, I put that in the memo to the video. The flat earth experts are going to show you how to research flat earth. And somebody said, how dare you call yourself an expert? How are you an expert? And with your, 40 diamond map model. And I said, we're not going to be talking about diamond map models. We've already done that. Anybody who wants to look that up can go look that up. That's not what we're focusing on anymore. And I said, but if I can't call myself a flat earth expert, which you can do too if you want, okay? Anybody can call themselves an expert. But if after 2 solid years of nonstop research, 100 and something videos, a Facebook group, a full-time web presence with flatearthconspiracy.com, so on, and podcasts out the wazoo. If I can't call myself an expert, then who is? What is a flat earth expert? Okay. And so you know, do I need a judge to admit me in court as a, oh, okay, Your Honor, we submit Lori Frary as a flat earth expert witness. And do I need the judge to say so ordered in order to say that I'm an expert, or Lawrence is an expert, or John is? The idea is that what a flat earth expert is someone who has an open mind enough to question the globe and then discover the flat earth and then question the flat earth. That's an expert, and that's what we've all done. We've questioned the flat earth and the Flat Earth Society model, the concave earth model, the A.E. Gleason map model. We've questioned every one of them. And that's why we don't have a model other than the one that we just threw out there under great, investigation as, well, here's a proposed model. It's a mock-up. We none of us have ever said this is exactly how the flat earth works, how the world works, right? All we've said is, according to our observations and the data that we have been through, this is how it might work. And yet, to date, everyone who says, oh, those idiots with the Pac-Man and those idiots with the diamond, blah, blah. And we offered a year ago, anybody who can debunk this map and model, please do. It's right out here in front of everybody. We want you to. We invite you to. We encourage you to. Nobody's done it yet. Okay? Does that say nobody's tried or everyone's tried and failed? No, it probably means nobody's even tried. Okay, well, fine, no problem. You don't even care. You don't even want to try. It's okay by us. We still, got it out there. But I'm going to wrap this up with this. Lawrence, you went back after several years to some information that you put out years ago, and you believed it at the time. You went back and you pulled it. And you have since then admitted on more than one occasion that simply by doing this show that you don't believe that anymore, and have admitted to pulling it. You don't control anybody else's having already downloaded it and putting it out there to the world. If you had anything to do over in your flat earth experience, would you change anything? And you're muted, so let me unmute you.
Are you saying with hindsight, would I do anything differently?
In hindsight, would you change the process that you went through?
Not when I found out that we've been sold the false model, but obviously if I'd known that at the start, then I would have tried to derail all these newbies when they came out. I doubt whether it would have been successful, but I would have tried before it had gained such a strong foothold. But when you're one against many, it's obviously going to be a very uphill battle. So yeah, but so we have made an impact, and these people, they will not address these questions, and I keep asking them. Well, I'm going to ask them one more time. Let me just share the screen once more. Here we go. So this is to all you big channels out there, and you know who you are, and we know you watch the show. Answer this question. Here we go. Scott and Amundsen, they both carried out expeditions to the South Pole. Their starting locations are all fully documented, where they went from and where they went to. And here on the map that you still are proposing, you've even got it on your documentation, on your information for your conference. You've got this same map, the AE map, this is virtually the same. This is where Scott started. This is where Amundsen started. They walked to the North Pole. Yeah, it's 858 miles for Scott and 798 for Amundsen. On your map that you will be showing to the mainstream media or any of the press that come to your conference, you will be showing this crappy map, Scott and Amundsen would have had to walk around 36,000 miles on the ice wall to get from their starting point to the South Pole. You know that's a pile, totally impossible to walk that far in a matter of weeks, and yet you still talk to people as though this map has a few flaws in it. It's totally, you know, totally unworkable, but you're still going with it. So we know that you people are agents, you're actors, you're out there to push the false model, and the people who are new to Flat Earth need to know that, because you know, they will be listening to these people.
Okay. That pretty much says it all right there. Okay, John, I have a question for you. You have followed, Lawrence, I need to mute you again. You're feeding back. John, you have followed Lawrence and I's process pretty much from the beginning, I believe. Pretty close. I think you've watched most, if not all, of our videos. Should we have done anything different? And what should we do to change the approach that we've taken from here forward?
Wow. I don't think anything different would have changed anything. I mean, the outcome is, you know, we got to a conclusion about a few things. You know, a map, an idea about a model. You know, you guys pushed it forward. You know, you made the movement respond to it. Going forward, wow. You know, when I think about that, I think about, I've made a lot of comments on a lot of different videos here and there. Just for myself, I probably wouldn't like talk to people as much as I did in the beginning. Everyone, I think, pretty on early, you notice who the prima donnas are, who the agents are, and then now, you know, third version, third wave, whatever you want to call it, we're at now. It's, you know, there have been people that have been detractors. I don't want to say the shills, but the detractors that are like, hey, check this out, or this is, you know, this is the way it is, you know, and with nothing even really concrete. I just see it as a detraction. It's like I don't know. Maybe I can find better words in the future.
Well, for one thing,
going ahead, corporate.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah, we're all using.
What did
YouTube.
you say? Going ahead? What? I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, going ahead, it just seems that there are people that are going to take the corporate route, and there are people that are going to take, you know, the not the
commercial route. Okay.
Yeah, commercial route. Yeah, there's the commercial route. There's
That's
the other
certainly
route.
not ever going to be us, so we don't have to worry about going in that direction. One thing I can say for sure, though, John, and you're a part of this because you came in right about the time that Pac-Man entered the scene. And for those of you who are new, who do not know what we're talking about, Pac-Man relates to that. Instead of us living on some infinite plane, or instead of us living on a pizza pan circle, that perhaps we live in a realm, and that all of the activities that we see day after day going on in the sky with the sun, the moon, and the stars moving from east to west and back again, perhaps they are operating, we do live in a realm, and perhaps they're operating much like Pac-Man when he goes off one side of the game board and instantly reappears on the other side of the game board, just like the sun, the moon, and the stars could be working. We have not ruled that out. And according to a lot of the observations and the data and everything else that we've been observing all this time, that it's highly a possibility that if the sun, the moon, and the stars away for Pac-Man. What's interesting about that is if you've been involved in the Flat Earth for any time at all, You have heard of the Pac-Man theory, and that is our theory. We were the first ones, I'm pretty sure, unless somebody wants to come forward and show evidence that they talked about Pac-Man much before we did. Maybe Free Energy did, I don't know. But we were the ones that promoted that theory. And we only promoted it because it's just as much a possibility. I mean, if you saw the Matrix and it impacted you and made you think, wow, maybe we do live in a Matrix, well, then the Pac-Man theory is not that far off. So there's a lot of people out there right now talking about simulation theory associated with flat Earth. And, you know, it's just as much a possibility as anything else. And the only way that you can move forward with flat Earth is with an open mind and with being able to entertain some idea that goes completely against everything you believe until you can completely debunk it or, you know, disqualify it and kick it out, and you never have to look at that again. But you need to look at every idea that comes through, you know, comes by the window, and see if that's a possibility. But you know, if you've gotten to this point, you're, you know, a new researcher of flat Earth. If you've gotten to this point, then congratulations for having the awareness and the open mind to at least investigate it, because that's the message that we're all passing around. You know, research flat Earth, just research it. And most of the time, if you spend any time at all and you keep your mind open, you'll become a flat earther. And so with that, do you guys have any closing words? And you're both muted, by the way.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Just let me quickly run past this, John. So you remember back in July, when I did the experiment with the quinoa, which is like rice, and I put words like love, same as my shirt and my mug, peace, harmony, truth. So I put good words on one jar and hate, you make me sick, I will kill you, that sort of thing on the other. And the one with the bad words has turned to total shit and has a horrible stink when you put it. The other one, I've still got them. It still smells sweet and fresh. So words must be, you know, very powerful tools, and they certainly have an effect on water and can change how you feel. And I'm going to do another experiment, so I'll have this one ready to go next week so we can record it. So what I've got 3 jars of strawberry jam, and I'm going to have one with no labels on at all, one with love, gratitude, thank you on, and the other one with the I hate you, you make me sick, I will kill you type of stuff on. And then I'm going to these are like, there's a vacuum on these, so you get a pop when I'm not going to open them now, so they're sealed. And what I'm going to do is remove the tops and scoop a bit of the jam out, a spoonful out of each, so the air can get at it. Then reseal the tops, put the labels on, and then I'm going to observe from week to week. Now, it may well be possible, we don't know it till we do it, that words can act as a preservative for food. Now, could you imagine that implication on the, you know, the food industry is multi-billion. If they could actually preserve food with words rather than adding, you know, sulfites and chemicals and potassium sorbate to hummus and stuff like that, so it has a longer shelf life. If they could give it a longer shelf life just by saying love on the label, that would be a huge bonus to industry. Obviously, if they all did it, the people who manufacture the preservatives, they would be out of business, wouldn't they? So people have a vested interest.
Well, that's okay with me, Lawrence.
Stop that man! Don't let him do the experiment with the strawberry jam. We cannot have love as a preservative. It's not allowed.
Right.
But let's say that works. Yeah,
Your
let's say,
experiment, your experiment with the quinoa was definitive. I mean, there's no way to argue that the one that had the hate words on it rotted, and the one that had the love words on it is still fresh from last July. I mean, that's just unheard of. And so I anticipate your next
we'll bring it out.
experiment.
We'll give it his first year birthday party and open the lids, and you can have another look at them.
Well, and you have had a very chipper attitude tonight, Lawrence, with your love, gratitude, thank you peace shirt on. So you should wear that every week.
Yeah. Well, if words can have that effect on water and on food, then all my clothing that I buy from now on is going to be emblazoned with these words.
Everybody who could hate Lawrence with all that love.
Let me just tell you a little story. Now, I wanted something to eat a couple of weekends back, so I said to my other half, I said, I'm going into the town to get some Chinese food. And I went out in this t-shirt, and people's heads were turning everywhere, and everybody was smiling at me, giving me this, this. People were, people I've never met in my life. They're all smiling at me, and in the Chinese restaurant, they were all smiling at me, and
they were all looking at him, going, "Look at this moron, right, John?"
Who is this guy?
Okay, John, do you have any parting words? Love, gratitude, thank you, peace.
Yeah, those are perfect. That's a great way. I can't top that. So I'm just gonna say that concerning like YouTube and going forward, just remember, kids, you make some YouTube videos out there, and maybe you got something really cool, maybe you don't, but just remember, real geniuses score lower on purpose. Think about it. And that's it.
That's great. All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you for watching. And for those of you who are listening to the podcast, please tune in to our other both playlist and other older videos, and you'll see the progression that Lawrence and I and others that have joined us along the way, including John, have the path we've walked it, and for many, many hours of your listening pleasure. So good night, you guys, and we'll see you all again soon.